Ants. Try see the world from their perspective. It is quite terrifying. This adventure comedy film is the first animated feature coming from DreamWorks themselves. Development began in 1988 when Disney pitched a film called Army Ants about a worker ant teaching lessons of independent thinking to his colony. Meanwhile, Jeffrey Katzenberg left Disney and later co-founded DreamWorks with Steven Spielberg and David Geffen and planned to rival Disney with their new animation division. And with that, production began in May 1996, 2 years after The Prince of Egypt started production. DreamWorks has contacted PDI, Pacific Data Images, to begin working on computer animated films to rival Pixar. During this production, a controversial feud erupted between Katzenberg of DreamWorks and Steve Jobs and John Lasseter of Pixar due to the production of their similar film, A Bug's Life. Later on, the feud got worse when Disney refused to avoid competition with DreamWorks' first intended animated release, The Prince of Egypt. So how on earth did this manage to release first? Well, apparently in 1995, Katzenberg announced that The Prince of Egypt is going to debut on November 1998. A year later, Disney scheduled A Bug's Life to open on the same weekend, which infuriated Katzenberg. He tried to negotiate a release date change for A Bug's Life with Disney executives, but they stood firm on their ground. So DreamWorks pushed The Prince of Egypt to the Christmas season and decided not to begin a full marketing for Antz after Prince of Egypt was released. Katzenberg suddenly moved the opening of Antz from March 1999 to October 2nd, 1998, and it actually did better than A Bug's Life in theaters. It didn't make as much, but the critics praised the movie for its voice cast, animation, humor, and its appeal towards adults. Obviously, there are comparisons between this and A Bug's Life, but I don't really want to talk about it now. Now, to be fair, I've seen A Bug's Life first when I was a kid, but outside of that, I really don't know which of the two is better. Well, I think it's time for me to actually find out for myself. So I hope you're not afraid of bugs because, well, here we go. The movie follows the story of an anxious worker ant Z who falls in love with Princess Bala. When the treacherous scheming of an arrogant officer, General Mandible, threatens to wipe out the entire worker population, Z must find a way to save the ant colony from the flooded tunnel and strives to make social inroads. What I find interesting about this movie is the ant colony itself, where you only have one purpose: be a worker and nothing else, or be a soldier and nothing else. And they just work, and work for the rest of their lives. Vacation means nothing to them. Which really makes sense when you think about it, because like bees, ants are always busy. But because of this militaristic colony, Z suffers an existential crisis from his everyday life, which is pretty relatable. And what's more interesting is that Insectopia represents as a dreamland where everything is supposed to be amazing and you can live as freely as you want. It's an escape from society, and it also represents as a fictional promised land that many believe to not exist. Which I find that pretty surprising because I just looked back to this one. And the message here is to resist conformity and be an individual wherever you are, which is pretty clever for the story. The animation is pretty much an improvement from what we saw in Toy Story, considering that movie was a first computer animated film. The character designs are pretty accurate to real life, and I like how there are certain variations of the ants, from a worker to a soldier. And then we move on to the other bugs, which honestly looks a lot better than the insects in B Movie. Now, I'm not saying that B Movie has terrible insect designs. I think they look fine, it's just that they just look so simple. And B Movie was made by a totally different crew, so why am I complaining? And then we have the environment, stuff like Insectopia, the termite colony, the picnic, and of course the inside of the anthill. The animators use advanced techniques to simulate crowd scenes and large-scale battles. This included sophisticated algorithms for generating and animating a large number of characters simultaneously. Woo! Even though it may not be a big deal now, it's still a milestone in the development of computer-generated animation, showcasing the potential of CGI and setting the stage for future advancements in the field. Man, I honestly thought Antz would be an average animated movie about, ants. Considering that I saw this movie like a few times in my whole life. I hope you understand that I watch a lot of movies to a point where it's pretty hard for me to go back to some of them. Especially that some movies doesn't really do much for me. But that's not the case with Antz. I think it's an alright animated film that I barely look back to. And it's a shame because despite its flaws, it does have a touch of social commentary. Now, would I prefer this than A Bug's Life? That's honestly a hard decision to make. Overall, Antz is just an alright movie. But let's give this movie one more credit. At least it didn't take place in Australia.
This creature hunts its own kind.
Jesus. Yeah, Australia got something with spiders. I don't know what. But let's not talk about them because I already have a lot on my mind recently. Anyway, how does it feel to be a DreamWorks fan? Well, it has been disappointing recently. With Kung Fu Panda 4 and obviously the garbage Megamind sequel, us DreamWorks fans has it rough. Not as rough as Disney, but still. But for now, I have other movies to look forward to.